show. Did it again, Magic Mike. First time this year. Had Jack in the other side. And I'm listening to myself talk because I'm pulling a video. And I'm like, hey, I'm not saying that right now. And I realized I had to. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, Supreme Court heard arguments today about bans, Virginia and Idaho, two states that barred transgender students from participating in girls' or women's sports. And so I reached out, or he reached out to me, my good friend Skyler Adkins. If you don't know Skyler, you need to know Skyler. He's a member of the Georgia Log Cabin Republicans, and he's also a member of the Georgia Cobb and a YR, Young Republicans. He's a good young man. Welcome to the Shelley Winter Show, Skyler.
Thank you so much for having me, Shelley. I appreciate it.
Before we go any further, can you explain to the audience, because I don't think a lot of people know, who are the Georgia Log Cabin Republicans, and when did they come about?
Yes, so I will clarify, first of all, I'm on the National Log Cabin Board. I'm a member of Georgia, but I do not speak for them. I speak for the National Board.
Understood.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were the original plaintiffs in the case that struck down Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and that led to the Obama administration eventually rescinding it on their own. But we were originally started then. We originally got our very early start in California when President Reagan, which was Governor Reagan then of California, was opposing the Briggs Amendment, which would basically bar public school teachers that were gay from being teachers. They formed a coalition with Governor Reagan at the time and defeated the initiative overwhelmingly, and that's where Log Cabin was born.
Gotcha. Okay, so now that people know, where they come from, where the group comes from, the organization, let's go forward. The Supreme Court. What is the position of the Log Cabin Republicans around this Supreme Court case? Yeah,
I'll read you our national statement that we gave today, and then we'll go into a little bit of nuance about it. So here's the statement from the Board of Directors and given on behalf of our Executive Director. The Supreme Court has a historic opportunity to protect women's sports and fairness, safety, and competitive opportunities that generations of female athletes have fought for. It is troubling that the court must even consider this question in 2026.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Absolutely.
That is probably the craziest thing that we're literally in this country, the greatest country in the history of the world. We're having an argument that men who identify as women should play against women in sports. That is even an argument is crazy to me. But go ahead, I apologize.
And the year of our Lord 2026. Yeah, here we are because activists on the far left, and it is them, have spent years attempting to undermine the hard-won progress achieved under Title IX by erasing meaningful distinctions based on biological sex. We urge the court to side with those who are fighting back, supporting safe and fair women's sports and recognizing clear biological differences between men and women is not anti-LGBT. It is common sense, it is fair, and it reflects the view of a clear majority of Americans. As LGBT conservatives, we firmly believe that respect for transgender Americans cannot and should not come at the expense, and I repeat, should not and cannot come at the expense of equality for women. Just as the Supreme Court recently reaffirmed marriage equality as settled law, we urge the court to bring finality to this issue by protecting women's sports for generations of girls to come.
So essentially, the Georgia Log Cabin Republicans, the National Log Cabin Republicans are on the side of Idaho and West Virginia.
Absolutely, 100%.
And it's explain the position, because many people, particularly on the left, but some on the right, will say, well, isn't this one group LGBT? Wouldn't you all be seeing this the same way?
We are having a very internal discussion right now at the national level and among the chapters about the LGBT and the T. And I say that to everybody.
Explain that. The LGB and the T. Explain that.
Yes, for your listeners, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. And I am of the school of thought with many people, including some of my colleagues on the national board, that we should have never been in this political marriage in the first place. Thinking that you're born in the wrong body, you have the wrong mechanics, that God made a mistake when he created you is much different than someone that is, same-sex attracted. And, the key word being sex, whereas they're obsessed with gender and all that. And I will add just for some clarity, that transgenderism is still to this day considered a mental illness.
Gotcha.
And homosexuality was decriminalized and taken off the mental illness list in the 1970s. Trans people don't want it removed from the mental illness list.
They don't want it?
They don't, because it wouldn't pay for their gender transitions.
Wait, explain that. So they, the L and the G's fought to get it removed because everyone saw I'm just same-sex attracted. I'm not crazy. So that was a fight. Right.
Those of us with some sanity, yes, I would argue, in my own opinion.
But the point is, there was a fight to remove it from the mental illness.
Yes.
Right? You're saying the transgender community doesn't want it removed.
No, because then the insurance companies couldn't code it to bill for it. They couldn't give them their cross-sex hormones. They couldn't give them their operations. They couldn't do all these things that they're doing right now if they got it removed from that DSM category of a mental illness.
Wow. And so now there's an internal discussion amongst the
It's a heated one, too.
And there are people who are saying that the T of the LGBT should stay?
Yes, they believe that because they're back during Stonewall, we all know we learned about that in school, and I'll argue that the person through the first brick wrote a whole book about how he's not trans. For example, they use that a lot to kind of whitewash history and say that we're in a political marriage. No, we're not. I mean, for all intents and purposes, there's a federal law, and the Supreme Court has said twice now, including the conservatives on the court, that gay and lesbian Americans have equal rights under the law. Every single level of the law, from Social Security to a state to everything, is equal. So the argument that we should still be together, I believe, is bringing down public support for same-sex marriage or marriage equality.
That's fair. So because gay and lesbian men and women, everyone's seen as the same. We both have the same rights, heterosexual, gay. So, but you're saying the transgender, are they wrapped up into that equal rights? They are, right?
They still have some things they would like to advocate for.
It's like what?
One of them being that they should be allowed to compete in the Olympics,
right.
and that they should, there's only 10 of them that have been cited in the Supreme Court case. So it's not a ton of them, but they're very, very loud and very, very aggressive, as we know. They're arguing that, they should still be allowed to compete against girls. And as someone who has a godchild, I don't want my goddaughter changing in a room with a biological man.
So that's really the gist of their fight. We've settled the law that we're all equal, right? No matter who you may love, we're all equal.
Yes.
That's been settled. Now they're moving the goalpost to where we are now. And so when you're talking about at the national level, this fight going on, what is the other side of the argument? I get your side of the argument. What's the other side of the argument?
The other side of the argument revolves around that if we remove the T, that we won't be able to police them, that we won't be able to do things like the statement I read and say, and not only that, we won't be able to call them out when they are doing the circusry that they do, right? That we're able now with the T, they argue, to call them out and say, you know what, you should not be brainwashing and pushing these hormones on children. But my argument back to them is, just because we're removing that from our philosophical and political statement doesn't mean we cede our right to comment on those issues.
Absolutely not. And I would argue that because you're right, when people like myself, who I'm friends with everybody, I grew up loving house music and disco. So you're no more friend to the LGBT community than someone who loves disco and house music. But we do, because it's LGBT, we do see it as one group of people.
Yeah.
And that does become an issue for many of the what I would say in the heterosexual community. We do see it as one group of people. It's just like when people see me as an African-American conservative, they see me locked in with every single Republican that's ever been around. I'm the same. I'm agreeing with you. I think you should just be LGB. and then everything else is a category unto itself, because it doesn't seem like you're fighting for equal rights anymore.
No, they're fighting for special rights. They're fighting against, and not only that, keep in mind, Shelley, that they have every major corporation, every single institution fighting for them. Whereas our issues, meaning the LGB and the allied people, like, we already have equal rights. They're fighting for special rights, and they have all the money, all the resources. It came out that Black Lives Matter was pouring millions of dollars into the trans causes, and people were like, why? We found out because the founder was doing transitions and all this. I say all that to say they're fighting for special rights. We are already equal under the law. And not only that, the Log Cabin Republicans, we support religious liberty.
Right.
We support the things like Riley Gaines Act in states in Georgia. We supported that and spoke on the record on it. So, I say all that to say I want to put this in perspective and find it, because I know we have to go to a break. But what I also wanted to say is that just because I have a fundamental disagreement of them being lumped in with us does not mean that I don't think they should have dignity, rights, and be treated with respect and fairness. It's not a bigotry toward them. It's just a realistic understanding that we don't share political interests and political values, because I don't want to see the people that I care about being drugged down by, and their and public opinion measured by Gallup continue to drop for marriage equality or marriage rights, whether civil unions,
because of what's going on with
of what's going on with the circusry that is the transgender issue.
Before we go to break, I got to go to break. Before we go to break, I want to give you one last opportunity. If the Supreme Court's listening right now, what's your message to the Supreme Court?
My message to the Supreme Court is, if you are one of these women that is in a locker room like Riley Gaines was, and you're changing, and this is your daughter in there, and Leah Thomas, I forget what his male name was, pulls his pants down, and this man is fully intact. And he was. There's no disputing the facts. And he was only on these hormones for a year. Do you want to continue to allow that to happen? Or do you want to be on the right side of history and say, we're putting an end to this madness? No more of this. It's dangerous. It's unethical. And even the Olympic Committee now is saying we're not doing this. So we need some finality to the issue.
My friend Skyler Adkins, love you, brother. You keep up the good work and everything you're doing. As Skyler is one of the young people that I look towards to say that there's a legacy being left in the Republican Party, particularly here in Georgia, because of the work that you're doing. And God bless you and all the work that you do.
God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. It's the Shelley Winter Show. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk.